All right, the gospel lesson is from the first chapter of John, and it is the call of Jesus to both Philip and Nathanael. So these words. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. And he found Philip, and he said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph, from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, he said of him, "Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "Where did you get to know me?" And Jesus answered, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." And Jesus answered, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Very truly I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." Jesus creates opportunities. It's the nature of God to do that. To create opportunities for those to whom things are sometimes, by the world's appearance, it looks like life is closed to them. Think of how Jesus called the poor, how he called the marginalized and the rejected, how he ministered to those that others labeled as unclean, how he healed people who were ill, and their very illness in that society in that day and time kept them from fully entering into social life. Jesus helped those who were full of fear and gave them courage to be themselves. Jesus is in the business of creating opportunities for people. And the people need opportunities, don't they? We need them. My own granddaughter, and I have many of them, but Melody is 6 years old. And recently she said to me, "Papa, I'm going to be an art teacher." 6 years old. Going to be an art teacher. Now, I don't know if she'll grow up to be an art teacher or not. But already, God is putting it in her to think about other people. Art teachers enable creative expression to come forth from students. And I hope that God will do something like that in Melody. That she'll be about creating opportunities for others because she's been given opportunities. People need opportunities, don't we? We need them. And Jesus creates them. The first way he goes about it is he calls us to himself. I like it in the scripture here that it says Jesus found Philip. He found him. He searched him out first and said, "Follow me." That is good news. He found him. Then Philip found Nathanael and brought him to Jesus because they knew that this is more than an ordinary human being. This is God. This is Messiah. This is the one who will deliver us. Jesus calls them to himself. He creates opportunities. He even says that he's like a ladder going to heaven, and angels ascend and descend on it, which means then that Jesus is the one who brings the messengers of God to come about upon this earth, because angels are messengers. They proclaim the good news. They announce good news to people who need it. Jesus calls us to make a difference in others' lives by creating opportunities, because he creates opportunities for a rich relationship with God. Now, you know that ministry happens mostly beyond these walls. God equips you to minister wherever you are at. In your families, at the bank, in the carpentry shop, in your engineering firm that you work for, you name it, God goes there. I want to introduce to you someone from our own congregation, Lieutenant Colonel Mike John. And Mike John is the Assistant Police Chief of the city of Cincinnati. Now, he needs a microphone.
Okay, so he's giving me free rein here, which is kind of scary. I was telling the other church service that it's unusual for me to be in front of a group, a church. It's kind of unnerving. It's even more unnerving when you have people that you consider your brothers and your sisters in front of you, which I have in this particular congregation here. So what I want to do is give a little bit of background about me, my faith journey, and how Jesus affects me every day. So for those of you that don't know me, I grew up in Great Britain, and I emigrated here in 1990. Now, in Great Britain, there's no separation of church and state, which for me was a good thing. I came from a household that was not a church-going household. So I first heard the words of faith in school, in church assemblies, because our teachers would act as ministers, and they would they'd preach to us 3 times a week, a Monday, a Wednesday, and a Friday. And I do remember this one particular teacher. His name was Brian Clay, and I really liked Brian a lot. And I think Brian was probably part of a Methodist church in Great Britain, but I just didn't know that back then. And I can remember him talking about sin. I can remember him saying, we're all sinners. And I was sitting there thinking, well, I'm not. I'm not a sinner. I haven't done anything bad. But he gave an explanation, and it really came to light for me. And he talked about the fact he just bought a brand new car, and the car was a brilliant white color. And he loved this car. It was his pride and joy, and he waxed the car and cleaned it and weekly polished it, and it looked immaculate. I can remember seeing it in the parking lot of the school, and it looked amazing. He said that car was just fantastic. And he said, I thought it was the cleanest car you could ever imagine till it snowed. And it snowed, and the white of the snow against the car really showed the pureness of the snow. And for him, that was a visual sign that no matter how we try to live our life, we still need faith and forgiveness. We still need to confess because there's only been one perfect person on the earth, and we know what happened to him. So that really stuck with me. I can remember going home and talking to my dad about it. My dad was a scientist. He was an astrophysicist. He was a college lecturer. And I can remember talking to my dad about my faith. And my dad was an atheist, but I really didn't know at the time what that meant. But I can remember as a little boy, probably 9 or 10 years old, looking up at my dad and talking about the love of Jesus Christ and the sacrifice he made for me and for everyone. And my dad gave me a pad of paper and a pencil, and he said, prove to me, son, that there's a God. And I can just remember feeling crushed inside, that this was the most important person in my life, my dad. I looked up to him, and I'm a little boy looking up at my father, and he's looking down at me, and he's basically telling me, son, you can't prove to me there's a God. And I'll come back to that a bit later here. So things didn't really work out for me in Great Britain, which is a good thing, because I would never have found my way here if things had happened the way I wish they would have happened. So close to 30 years ago, almost exactly, in fact, tomorrow it will be 30 years, November the 11th, 1989, I was a college student, and I decided that I wasn't going to hang out with my school friends that day, my high school friends. I was going to go back to my dorm room. I was going to hang out with my college roommates, and one of them was going to bring an obnoxious American to the house. Of course, I'd never met this American. I was just stereotyping, as sometimes we do. And I'm ironing shirts, and that American was Christine John, or Christine Wells back then. So I met Christine, and my life changed. My life changed. There was something different about Christine than any other person I'd ever met. And I knew that that was absolute fate. And originally we had decided that we were going to start our life in Great Britain, but I couldn't find a job. Back in the late 80s, there was a big recession going on. I couldn't find work. And so I decided to step out on faith, on a limb, and apply for a visa to come to the United States. And that's how basically I ended up here. I got my visa on July 27th, 1990. I got on a plane on July 29th, 1990. And on August 4th, 1990, we were married. So we spent a whole bunch of time apart. We wrote letters to one another, and that's our story. So hopefully it will last. I wanted more than the green card. I really did. So I don't want to get real personal into medical details and everything, but we were having trouble making a family. And fortunately for us, medical science kind of caught up to us. And Christine became pregnant in 2003. And it was a very high-risk pregnancy. Let's just say that, very high risk. She'd gone to see the doctor this one day, and the doctor says, you need surgery like right now. And this day happened to be April the 1st, 2003. So April the 1st, 2003, Christine's rushed into hospital. And, people often talk about that moment when they meet the Lord. And often it's related to a crisis moment in life. And for me, obviously, that was a crisis moment. And I can remember sitting in the hospital waiting room and just opening my heart up to the Lord and asking, please take care of my wife. Dear Lord, please give this unborn child a chance. Just do that, please. And I had this incredible sense of peace and comfort. And it was as if time stood still for me. And there is no question in my mind that at that moment, Jesus was right next to me, providing that comfort for me. The doctor came out and said the pregnancy was a success, but your wife's going to be on bed rest for the entire rest of the pregnancy. Fortunately, Christine likes grilled cheese sandwiches and scrambled eggs, so that's just about all I can fix. But we got through that. And Megan was born by C-section. She was a preemie, and by all accounts, from what the doctors told us, she was a miracle baby. So I say that because, for me, April 1st, 2003 was a day that not only my wife was saved, my daughter was saved, but I was saved, because that really was the light that went on for me. And as I started to reflect on things that had happened, the journey that I'd passed through, I could see his work in motion. So why do you have a police officer standing in front of you? I put rank aside. I don't really like talking about my rank because I feel like I serve others. I happen to serve as an investigations bureau commander. But trust me, I know all the work's being done by the cops, the real cops. The cops that answer the calls for service and all that kind of stuff. So I stand before you because I think that there's something that is very similar with the work that we do as police officers and what Pastor John does. And I said this in the other service, that he really polices our souls. He does that every Sunday. Makes us stop and think, hit that reset button. We police the streets. And I've had a very fortunate experience in the Cincinnati Police Department. I've been very, very lucky to be surrounded by some extraordinary individuals that have helped me, they've mentored me, they've helped me through the process of getting promoted. I can say that things started to click for me after this faith journey in 2003. I became promoted to sergeant, I got promoted to lieutenant, to captain, and now obviously appointed as an assistant chief. But if I go back to when I was promoted to police captain, which was a big deal. It's a big deal to be a police captain. You're considered command staff. You're expected to stand up and talk in front of people. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay doing that. So my first day as a police captain was January the 3rd of 2014. I'm pretty good with these dates here. And January 3rd, 2014, the evening of January 3rd, there was a homicide in the district that I was now the commander of. On my first day, congratulations, Captain. Here's your first crime you got to talk about. It's a homicide. It's the homicide of a prostitute. Her name is Jessica Reveley. She was murdered in the street around midnight. We got no idea who did it. And so at that particular time, our police chief had set up some town hall meetings because he was a new police chief. He was from out of town. He wanted to get to know the lay of the landscape, how the city works. So District 1, which is 5 neighborhoods over the Rhine, West End, Pendleton, Queensgate, and Mount Adams. The challenging neighborhoods for us is the West End and over the Rhine, and this homicide, of course, happened in over the Rhine. Happened on a street called McMicken. McMicken Avenue is well known for prostitution. And when I was in front of this group, and it was a similar setting as this, where I was actually in a church, River of Life Church on Central Parkway, I was getting roasted. And I'm like, I haven't even started yet, guys. And they are coming after me. What are you going to do? These women are out here. They're disgusting. It's a terrible blight on the neighborhood, and you're just doing nothing. Of course, they weren't talking about me. They're talking about this, right? And this. They're talking about the police that become apathetic, that actually quit calling us because they weren't seeing any action, and they were saying that these women were changing the landscape of the neighborhood. And so I stopped to think about this, and what am I going to do? What am I going to do about this? I thought they were going to talk to me about violent crime and reducing shootings, and I'd been part of groups that had worked on groups and gangs and locked them up. I knew how to do all that stuff. That stuff was easy. Go chase bad guys and lock them up. Every cop wants to do that. But this stuff, that was totally out in left field for me. I'd never dealt with it, and I didn't know what to do. So I asked the guy who I replaced, who'd been a mentor to me, and he says, Mike, I'll be quite honest with you, I never addressed that. Good luck. So I'm like, well, I really don't know what to do. So I actually started talking to the beat level cops. There was two particular officers, one who'd worked Vice, and his job for about 20 years had been going out there and soliciting the women and then locking them up. And anybody that knows you about the criminal justice system, anybody that's familiar with it will tell you that's a revolving door, okay? What is the prostitution all about? That's a symptom of something else going on in that person's life. And I was listening to the lyrics of the third song, and it started talking about the powerless and those living on the margins of society, you know, the unclean. And so what are we going to do? Is locking people up is that the solution? So I asked these cops, what do you think we can do? And they said, well, we're going to have to look at this from a different angle. And you're going to have to give us some space to do this. And we're going to start calling influential people. Are you okay with that, Captain? You got our back? I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, all right, well, we'll try that. So I talked to my boss. My boss is like, look, I don't know what you're thinking of, but if you want to try something, go ahead, but it's on you. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll do that. So what we ended up doing was, as I asked the cops, I said, well, you go out. You two, this is all you're going to do. You're just going to go out. I want you to go on McMicken Avenue, and I want you to get to know these women. I want you to build a level of trust that we're not there just to lock them up, that there's something else that we want to do to get to know their stories, what is their background. There's two experts right here. They can tell you, Jen and Rick. What is it that has driven them into that situation? And of course, it's not a secret. Most of it is addiction. Most of the addiction is to do with opiates in this particular area of the country. And so what can we do to provide some kind of relief for the women? How can we get them into treatment? Because the treatment for addiction is very difficult. It runs a cycle. There's lots of people that fail. They drop out. We've got to pull them back in. And so we ended up working with a judge by the name of Judge Heather Russell. We asked Judge Russell, we need something different in the court system. Would you be willing to partner with us and go out on a limb? And she did. She's a wonderful lady. And like I told the last group I spoke to, I don't even know if she has a D or an R by her name, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because her heart's in the right place. And she was willing to go out on a limb too. So we did a couple of other things. One thing that I did is I told my boss, I says, I want to block off McMicken Avenue so it's not a thoroughfare. You can't drive straight from one end of McMicken to the other. And he's like, why do you want to do that? I said, because these guys that pick up these women, they just drive this street. They drive around in a circle. They come back on Central Parkway. They go around again. I said, we got to try and stop that. So we did that. We put barricades up, concrete barricades on McMicken Avenue. You can look it up. It was called the McMicken Path Project, People Against Trafficking Humans. And I got some grief about it. But that was okay. The funniest thing about the day we dropped the barricades down was some lady came out of her home, and she was so pleased. She was so happy. She says, thank you so much for doing something to help these women. And I said, well, we're just trying to make a change, trying to make a difference. And she's like, it's great, except what are you going to do about the school buses? And I was like, yeah, the school buses. Okay, we'll fix that. So we took one of the concrete barricades, and we ended up putting up a wooden one that we had to go and move twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. But we got through it. It's just you can't think of all these things. And we ended up partnering with Judge Russell. She started a court. We wanted to change the lives of these women. And so she called it Change Court. And of course, everything has acronyms: the PATH Project, People Against Trafficking Humans, Change Court, which is changing habits and setting new goals is empowering. That's what it stands for. And so the actual Change Court itself takes about 2 years. It takes about 2 years for these women to go through treatment. Anyone that's dealt with addictions, and I'm sure people here have been impacted by it, it takes 2 years. 2 years to get them through addiction services. And what we did was we wanted to provide them new hope, a new way. Some of them have never had a driver's license before. We wanted to get them housing, a place that was safe, get them out of harm's way. And I can tell you that going to a change court graduation as a police commander is unbelievable. To know that I had just a little part of this, but to sit in the courtroom and you see one of these women come in, and they are completely transformed from who they were on the street. When you see them clean from drugs, clean from addiction, when you see them reunited with their kids, with their brothers, their sisters, their parents, when they have a job, and they speak about how hard it was and how grateful they are for the opportunity, just the chance to have somebody in their corner, somebody working with them, and somebody helping them when they fell, because that's going to happen. And, like I said, I've been part of violent crime groups and, arresting bad guys and, getting them locked up, and that's great, the fun stuff, chasing the bad guys when I was a younger cop. But seeing a life transformed like that is just amazing. It was just truly, truly gratifying to see that. Just doing things a different way, hitting the reset button, like I said, Pastor John does this with us every Sunday, and trying to be intentional about what we do as we go out. Think about the bigger picture, the journey that we're all on, and sometimes you don't know all the baggage somebody has, why they're in that particular situation at that particular moment in time. Maybe somebody is not real happy in the morning and you don't know what they've gone through. So trying to do that intentionally. I talked in the last service about the fact that I'm mindful and I'm prayerful daily, and I need that. I need to hit that reset button every day. But I do that in the morning. I turn the radio off. When I'm driving to work, that's my time where I talk to the Lord. I claim him as my maker. I confess my sins. I give thanks for the many blessings in my life, which truly are just incredible. And then there is no way I could earn them. None. No way. And then I get into the asking for stuff. Most of the time I'm asking for someone else, not for myself, because I truly am fortunate. I'm mindful of the time. It's noon. I thank you for indulging me in this. I could drone on for a while, I know that. But I really am humbled to be asked to speak before you guys. So thank you for your attention, and God bless each and every one of you.
Thank you, Mike. I've often wondered why the story of Nathanael is even in the scriptures. He's an obscure person. He's only mentioned twice, all in the Gospel of John. We know very little about him. We know that he was a skeptic. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? And then he went and saw, and he met Jesus, and it changed him. His name, Nathanael, means gift of God. And Jesus gives us all as a gift to someone, to the world, to our communities, our families. And he calls us, knowing who we are. Because that's the other thing about Nathanael in this. When he meets Jesus, he says, "You know me. Where did you get to know me?" He felt known by Jesus. Jesus says, "This is one in whom there is no deceit." I like your honesty. He turned it around. He didn't say you're awful for having skepticism. Instead, he praised him for his honesty. And Jesus knows us. It's a wonderful thing because he'll call us to be who we are. We don't have to be someone else, but who we are where we are. And that influence creates opportunities for people. There are people that Jesus can only reach through you. That's it. What an opportunity. Thank you for being the church. Thank you for seeking the Jesus and praying and letting Jesus empower you to do things in new ways.